Hello.
Welcome. Would like to introduce us, the International Mediation Campus. So the International Mediator Campus offers training, international mediation training for a global community. And our USP really is that we established a fair price system, making the training accessible to anyone from anywhere. Besides our training, we have projects internationally, for example, in Ethiopia, where court annex mediation was introduced, and we're going to train 200 judges who then going to take up the 50,000 cases of mediation that are expected next year. This is a huge project we're going to start, and we have similar projects introducing constructive dialogue in communities. And I don't want to go into that more deeply now, as we're focusing on our webinar series today. And we regularly offer free webinars on topics around mediation, at least once a month. And I'm really, really excited to have this really special topic today with our dear colleague, Ran from Israel. The topic is mindfulness-based relational approach to mediation and conflict intervention. And without further ado, I'd like to pass over the word to you, Ran. The floor is yours. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you very much for having me. And thank you very much for starting it with such a calm tone and atmosphere that kind of helps us dive into the more relaxed atmosphere of mindfulness. I'm really super excited to see people from all over the world, and this is wonderful. I myself have the luxury and the good fortune to teach students who come from all over the world, because our program, as Alex said, is an international program for peace and conflict management, that every year we have students coming from practically all over, from Africa, from Canada, US, all over Europe, really from everywhere, China, India, Nepal. We have students from Nepal at the moment. So I love the diversity. I think the diversity is a wonderful opportunity for us to meet also some of the faculties of the mind of how we process things, which is partly what mediation, what mindfulness does. It's about helping us be more aware of how we process things, how we tend to look at the world and judge it for our thick lenses that we are sometimes just unaware of. So this is at large something that we will be discussing today. We have about an hour, which is not a lot. Actually, we have 52 minutes to be exact. And I do want to leave time also for questions. Not only leave time, but to invite you to ask questions as we go along. Therefore, I am aware of the fact that this is going to be an introductory meeting. We have a masterclass in this, right, offered in the IM campus. Some of you who want to take an entire full course in that, come to Israel, join our program. We do that as well. So I need to somewhat apologize in advance. I don't know if it's an apology, but rather kind of making sure that in terms of expectations, we understand that today we're here to really get a basic sense of what is this all about and how can that be relevant. One question that I have to all of you, if I can, those of you who are able to open your cameras, it will be so much nicer to speak to people and to see faces, especially that I'm trying to connect on such a topic rather than just to see the names on the screen. We know that, Zoom is challenging and we're trying to be as interactive as possible. So if you can, please, I would very much appreciate opening your cameras so I can see faces. And human reactions and responses will be nice. The way that I built it today is around the first part will be a bit more theoretical, I would say even philosophical, to understand the conceptual placement of what I bring into the mix, okay? Then we will move a little bit into practical experience, just a taste of a mindfulness practice, and to speak about the context of mindfulness within mediation, within conflict resolution contexts, in order to help you see its relevance, at least in theory. Until one does not practice, it is very difficult to really be convinced, and it should be this way. We shouldn't be convinced by others preaching or teaching. We should be convinced through our experience, through our trial and error, and seeing what works and what really helps us. So again, with a grain of salt, let us get going on this journey. Is that okay? We good? Wonderful. At least I have 6 or 7 people to acknowledge and give me their facial reaction, which is so important. We are talking about relational approaches. So it is about human relation and how we relate to each other. Okay. First, I want to speak about the importance, or to give the rationale of why we're moving into the philosophical aspects. And I will take something from the transformative approach of mediation. I'm not going to teach much. I'm not going to talk about the transformative approach of mediation. I'm going to talk about a basic claim that they make, Baruch Bush and Joe Folger, 1994, the transformative approach to mediation. And they say that, the mediation table, our performance within the mediation room derives from an approach that we have towards mediation, right? Each and every one of us as a mediator, we develop some approach to mediation. That in itself sits on a story and narrative that we have with regard to what is mediation? What is it meant to do? What is its benefits? Why are we bringing people into the room for that process? And there are very diverse answers, by the way, diverse answers to why we mediate. Okay, I won't go into that now. That also sits on a deeper level, which is the worldview with which we come into see the world, the worldview through which the perspective, the philosophy, the kind of first philosophy that we hold, even if we're not philosophy students. We have a basic philosophy of what is human nature. What is human transformation? What is cherishable in human interaction? So we cannot refrain from going into these deeper levels. Ken Klock, another pioneer in the field, I hope the name is familiar to you. Kenneth Klock wrote many beautiful, beautiful books. In one of his books, Mediating Dangerously, in 2001, he writes the following: the roles we play in mediation are largely defined by our own attitudes, expectations, and styles. These roles, in turn, depend on a set of assumptions about human nature, the nature of conflict, and the nature of change that have reverberated throughout Western political and philosophical thought for centuries, resulting in radically different definitions of mediation. So we should be aware of that. He speaks about Western thinking. Some of you do not necessarily hold that. I'm doing a lot of work with Arab communities, and I'm so intrigued and challenged by different perspectives that do not come necessarily from our Western perspectives, okay? I'll bring Buddhist philosophy today, very far on certain levels from Western thinking, okay? But we should be aware of where it is we're coming from. Me, being aware of the philosophical underpinnings of Western thought and being able to kind of take a step back, to zoom out. No, not you. You shouldn't zoom out. Zoom out in the sense of taking a step back and kind of look at everything that we do from afar. This is really, really important. Now, the perspective that I'll speak on, of which behalf I will speak, in Western thinking, it will be what is called a social constructionist perspective. And the social constructionist perspective says that when we try to understand human beings, we shouldn't be looking at what's going on in their heads. Meaning is not located in people's heads. It is located with how we as individuals are born from and through and within relationships. In an individualistic Western world, you know, when we want to understand something, we want to understand its deeper inner core. What do I really mean? I need to sit quietly outside of the exchange in order to understand what I really mean, who I really am. Well, social constructionist perspective says we as individuals are born from relationship. We need to understand how we go about in the world together with others. Okay? If I want to be really carefully attentive and present at this moment, I don't need to bring all the baggage of who I am. It's there. I'm not saying I deny everything, but I need to kind of let go of it and see what transpires in the moment when I'm in the presence of others. It is a very, very different perspective. What is called, we co-construct meaning together jointly. Those of you who are familiar with Wittgenstein, you know, pragmatism in philosophy of language, it's already there, but I don't want to go into that now. But meaning, don't look for meaning in dictionaries. Look for meanings as we co-construct them together jointly in our shared space. We thus find that social understanding is not a matter of penetrating the privacy of the other's subjectivity. If it were, we could never really understand others. Rather, understanding is a relational achievement. It depends on coordinating action, and most frequently, coordination within a certain tradition. Understanding how things go about in a certain tradition. That was quoted from Ken Gergen, one of the main authors, main scholars of the social constructionist approach. Okay, so there's a paradigm shift here involved, and the paradigm shift is that we move from perception of people as rational, independent actors reasoning their way toward identifiable goals to emergent properties of coordinated action. Now, I will not deny the interest-based approach, which is like the basics of mediation and negotiation training that we teach. Okay, interest-based approach, try to understand what are your deepest interests, what is important for you, and with that, try to negotiate. It's important to do that, but we cannot suffice by just looking for our own analysis of what's going on in our own mind. It's just not enough. We have to add to it other skills, sensitivities, capabilities that are more dynamic, more relational, more interactive. An individualistic perspective will kind of talk about an interaction between me and you. I'm here, you're there, we exchange ideas, okay? I bring my interest, you bring your interest, we look for shared interest, we try to enlarge the pie, to create value, we try to get to a win-win solution. These are all terminologies of negotiation 1.0, of mediation 1.0, which I hope you're familiar with, but that's kind of the basics of what we teach in negotiation and mediation, which is great. And I'm not saying but. Are you familiar with the difference between yes, but and yes, and? Good. Some of you took that in your classes. So I'm not refuting that. However, I add to it a component and says, a relational being, a relational understanding of human dynamics, it's not about me being here, you being there in exchange. There's something going on, okay, that we need to be aware of. In my work, which is very much on dialogue, okay, I would say I'm a scholar of dialogue. And why? Because all that I've been saying so far is what the spiritualists and philosophers and the profound thinkers who wrote about dialogue are saying about dialogue. Martin Buber, the philosopher of dialogue, in the Jewish importance philosopher of dialogue, says, in the beginning there is relation. In the beginning there is relation. A very powerful sentence, because you know, some of you may know which book starts with in the beginning, right? The most holiest book in Jewish Christian tradition, right? The Bible, in the beginning. He tells us that the starting point is not me and you, it's the relationship from which you and me derive. That's a huge, huge change. David Bohm, quantum physicist, and quantum physics is important here, but I won't go into that. But quantum physics speaks this kind of language. It says dialogos, the etymology of the word dialogos is dia is through. It's not from two. Dia is through. Logos is the meaning of the word. And it says dialogue is the meaning that flows among and through us and between us. Okay, there's a river of meaning that flows in and among and between us. His student, William Isaacs, the head of the Dialogue Center at MIT, says dialogue is a conversation with a center, not with sides. Think of it from as a spatial metaphor, a conversation with a center, not with sides. Now I'm talking, you're listening. We're not really having a dialogue. I'm lecturing, right? It is somewhat limiting in terms of what we can achieve. My students know me by now after 3 or 4 weeks since the school year started. This is not what I do in class with them. I don't lecture and they're kind of listening, kind of input, output, exchange. We're having a dialogue. We're trying to co-create, to construct meaning together. This is a way more profound process. More is achieved through it. So we're moving from the problem-solving approach, the interest-based approach, which is how do I satisfy my needs, you satisfy your needs by trying to bring into the table our interests and find a shared interest and find how to create value and how to come to creative resolutions. We move from that to a more interactionist approach, which wishes to transform the conflict interaction to some more co-constructive flow approach that takes place in the moment. A conflict, just, to remind you or to let you kind of reflect on what happens in times of conflict. Oh, I have a problem with you. I don't want to speak with you. I push back. I shut down. I look after myself. I entrench within my own positions. I'm not open to this co-creation and co-construction, right? So an interactionist approach would be, how do we help people let go of that attachment or that clinging to the narrative, which is one-dimensional, that they hold to? I'm right, you're wrong, I'm good, you're bad, this is right, this is wrong, this is how it should be resolved. There's clinging, there's holding on to, there's attachment to what's right, okay? Those of you who are familiar a little bit with basic Buddhist thinking, you already recognize the concepts. Clinging, attachment, letting go. This is what Buddhist practice is about. Because Buddhism is not about philosophy. I'm just giving you the philosophical background. It's about our experiential, our existential ability to be present with others without these faculties of mind taking over in ways that we don't see each other anymore, but rather I see you through these thick lenses from which I interpret you. Okay? Questions so far? We good? Wasn't too theoretical? Didn't lose you? Do you see the context? Do you see the relevance also? Wonderful. Alex, we're doing well. Let's take a deep breath. Time to take a deep breath. Move out from thinking and all. You know what? Let's sit straight on a chair. Let's sit straight, put our feet on the ground, close our eyes for a few seconds. Try to be aware of the tension that you hold in your muscles, in your shoulders. Just try to let go of the tension. See the tension that you have in your spine. And just breathe. Easily breathe. Allow yourselves to calm. Allow the fresh air to come into these places where things are tense after a long day, after so much that's been going on. Just breathe. And when you breathe in, be aware of breathing in. When you breathe out, be aware of breathing out. That's all there is to it. I breathe in. I know I breathe in. I breathe out. I know I breathe out. I breathe in. The abdomen is rising. The belly is becoming kind of bigger. I breathe out. It is shrinking. Just follow your breath. That's all there is to it. And I know it's not easy because the thoughts are running crazy from one place to another. And we need to learn how to tame the mind, how to quiet the mind. It's a process. Allow yourself to bring attention to where you have tension in your body, in your forehead. Thinking, thinking, thinking. There's probably tension in your forehead. Just relax the forehead when breathing. See the tension that you have around the eyes. Just relax the tension. Tensions accumulated in your cheeks. Just relax them. And follow your breath. Breathing in, I'm aware of breathing in. Breathing out, I'm aware of bringing out, breathing out. Okay, let us open our eyes and come back gently to our interaction. Do you feel a bit more relaxed? Do you feel a bit more congruent, more in touch with your body? Less hecticness of the mind? This is just a taste. Mindfulness practice, meditation practice takes time, takes wonderful. Someone says, Carrie says, definitely wonderful. So you don't need to be a master to accomplish things through mindfulness. Even simple exercises in our daily lives can help us a lot. But obviously, as we train and turn it into a practice, we develop capacities. It's like working in the gym. You go to the gym, we work on our muscles. It takes time. It's painful at the beginning, but we develop the elasticity and the capability of the muscles. The blood is flowing and it strengthens. So just the same with mindfulness practices. If to give like a preliminary definition of mindfulness, I bring one from John Kabat-Zinn. He says it's a deliberate moment-to-moment awareness without judgment or attachment to whatever passes through the five senses or the mind. Paying bare attention with equanimity to our present experience as it unfolds. Cultivating mindfulness is the cultivation of awareness of the interrelated and ever-changing or impermanent sense of whatever arises in the moment. Things come and go, and we experience it. We allow it to touch us with open-mindedness, and we have full awareness. We are letting go of the faculties of the mind that are taking over and are not allowing us to be present with others, present in the moment. So when you hear about the notions of giving up on your ego or transforming your egotistic or egocentric awareness in Buddhist practices, it's about how to try and peel gently and slowly these faculties of mind that are our ego, our way of seeing things, and transforming it to our ability to see whatever arises. Now, we shouldn't be fearful. What arises is us in the full sense. So I'm not giving up on myself. On the contrary, in the beginning, it's difficult to understand, to realize, but it's not about giving up on ourselves. It's about finding ourselves fully with fresh perspective in the moment. Now, Buddhism, philosophically, and I promise not to go back to philosophy, but I will just say this, that philosophically, it is based on the category of relation, not on the category of substance, the Aristotelian notion of the substance, the inner core. According to Buddhist thinking, we don't need to look for the inner core, what's like the true thing, but rather to see how things arises within them in the moment and become what they are within relations. Mindfulness practice helps us develop the capacity to be attentive to the moment, to be aware of what arises, and refraining as much as we can from imposing past or future wishes on current situations. I crave for something, and therefore I try to make it happen and impose it on the situation. Let go of the craving. Sometimes I teach my mediation students that the most important skill is the ability to let go of the need to know what might be the outcome. It comes from our anxiety, our fear, our sense of insecurity as mediators. What may be the outcome? I don't know. Just be present with what arises in the conflict interaction. There's a lot to do to help people in the conflict interaction gently transform. And, answers would rise in the right moment, when in the right time. But takes a lot of effort, a lot of capability to do that. There's a beautiful quote by a mediator who says, it took me long time, many years of mediation to be able to develop the capacity to sometimes after half an hour of mediation to not know what the mediation is about. It took me a lot of time to develop the capacity to not know what the mediation is about half an hour into the mediation. Get it? It's a capacity, it's a skill, it's a strength to say, I don't know, we're here to explore. We're here on a learning journey. We see what unfolds. Helping parties do that is a way to help them move out from this clinging, to this holding, to this firm sense of their perspective of the situation, their one-dimensional narrative of the situation. Okay? Now, as Len Riskin said in one of his articles, Len Riskin is one of the pioneers of mediation who at one point at the beginning of the 2000s started to bring mindfulness into mediation and negotiation studies in law schools. Now it's huge in the States. I taught in the States in a couple of law schools, and mindfulness is like, as one mindfulness teacher said, mindfulness is the second biggest thing after organic food in the United States. Most fashionable thing is organic food. The second biggest is mindfulness. Like, it's big. And you see it in law schools. You see it in so many places where we're trying to help develop skills that normally we never taught them. We never thought that they're needed. These are foundational capacities to develop awareness, to develop emotional sophistication, to develop understanding. And this is not something that usually we're trained to do. With mindfulness practices and teaching, we help develop some of these capacities. again, when we think about negotiation is where people kind of feel that they are entrenched, that they have their passions and impulses and judgments, rationalizations, assumptions, biases, mental shortcuts. They all take over. They become excessively self-centered. They have strong negative emotions. They have automatic, habitual ways of thinking and of reacting. And we have to help them move out or transform it. Mindfulness, studies of mindfulness in the context of negotiation and mediation shows us how mindfulness provides methods for calming the mind, methods for concentration, for experiencing compassion and empathy, for helping negotiators be more aware of certain deep assumptions that they have, to enhance positive mood and better performances, clarity of mind, clarity of analysis, okay? Less distracted, better self-understanding, freedom from the suffering of clinging and craving, clinging to the past, craving for the future. We are putting that a bit away, and that helps us perform better as negotiators, as mediators. It helps us transform our emotions, the stormy emotions. It enhances emotional recovery, more equanimity of mind, more adaptive responses. So, so much more that we can say, but I think I will stop here because I do want us to have time for discussion and a conversation. So what I would like to do is to take another couple of moments for an exercise to get us back to our breath, back to our body, and then we'll open up the conversation. And instead of me imposing on you a lecture that I prepared, I'll be able to tune into questions that you have, and we'll become a bit more dialogical and more fruitful. Okay? So let's take again a moment to sit straight if we can. It's as if something is kind of pulling us from our heads. Try to have your feet straight on the ground. Try to have your hands on your hips. Again, see the tension accumulated in the shoulders. Close your eyes. Couple of breaths. Breathe normally. It's not as if you need to take deep breaths. Just be aware of your breath. Breathe in. I am aware of breathing in. Breathe out. I am aware of breathing out. See where there is tension in your spine, in your neck, in your forehead. Just relax the tension and come back to the breath. Breathing in. I know I'm breathing in. Breathing out. I'm aware of breathing out. A thought comes up. I'm aware of the thought coming up. That's okay. Hello, thought. Thank you for coming. Now I'm going back to my breath. I'm allowing you to continue the thought. Bye-bye, thought. Breathing in. Breathing out. Breathing in. Breathing out. I feel agitation somewhere. That's okay. Just be aware of the agitation. You don't need to do anything. You don't need to act upon it. Be aware of the agitation, and it passes. Things rise, things pass. That's how it is. Couple more breaths. Try to focus on the abdomen rising when you breathe in. Abdomen shrinking when you breathe out. Again, see if there's tension in the body. Be aware of what's going on in the body. Bodily sensations are so important. Relax whatever tension you may have. Coming back to the breath. Breathe normally. No need to artificially breathe differently. Just breathe normally. Gently, let us open our eyes. Gently come back to the space that we have, all of us together. Please, I welcome whatever question, thought you have. Half-baked ideas are fine. You are all very quiet. Normally, silence in the room, we get anxious. What does it mean? How do I feel in the silence? How do I feel in the void? Let's do something about it. What does it say about me? What does it say about you? What does it say about our interaction? It doesn't say anything. It is what it is. It's just fine. We observe it. And we see what comes. Just fine. And if one of you feels now a little bit anxious or uncomfortable, says, why are we wasting the time? Let's do something. Let's move on. He should speak. He should listen. Be aware of that. Wonderful. Be aware of these sensations in your body, of these emotions climbing up your body or your soul.
I have a question.
Thank you, Joanne. Please.
Are you ready for the question?
Sure.
If we were still meditating.
No.
So the mediations that I've done, I've only been mediating for about a year. You have to start out doing these small claims mediations.
Mm-hmm.
I've observed a couple custody visitations and so forth. But in those, you're very time driven. You have a half an hour to resolve the issue.
True.
Are you going to pay this person? Are you not going to pay this person? How much are you willing to pay them and by what time? So it's kind of difficult to understand how the mindfulness, I know how you can let go of your preconceived notions like, oh, those people never paid their bills, that kind of stuff. I understand letting go of ideas about people and certain types of people and things. And that, of course, as mediators, we're trained to let go of all that anyway. But how do you apply mindfulness to these time pressured, you got a half an hour to get these two to reach an agreement or they have to go back to court?
Wonderful. Wonderful. Very good question. Yeah. We need to adapt. And, we need to bring all this beauty into concrete situations and to do what's right and for every situation. Sometimes I would do work with Jewish and Arab mayors or high-skilled officials. I won't sit there and say, let's do some breathing exercises. They'll throw me out the window before I know it. So we need to be aware of what's possible, what isn't. I would say more than anything, how does it nourish you? Knowing that you're about to enter this hecticness of half an hour process, which I find to be unfortunate. I wish, the courts will allow more time out of the understanding that mediation is first and foremost a process and it takes time. coming into mediations, I do, not the small claim course, I do the higher courts. I tell the attorneys, if you don't have 3 hours for the meeting, we'll find another time. But if you're coming to the meeting in order to be out the door in an hour and a half because we have another meeting, that's not good. We need to make sure we free time, we create space. Having said that, going back to the reality that you bring, in this reality, I would say it's about what practices can I do prior to the meeting in order to get myself centered, in order to get myself more, get greater clarity. So I'm not being thrown off by this hecticness. Now, don't get confused. When you are an advanced meditator, it's not as if, life is like this relaxed, everything you do with this shanti approach of taking time like forever, you can drive everyone nuts. No, sometimes you can do things with high performance very quickly, very sharp, very centered, because this is what is called for. The situation calls for. I'm not trying to impose myself on the situation. So let it help you prior. Let it help you post in terms of your own reflection and kind of recovery. And as much as possible, when we do advanced training, it's about how do I drop in the moment? How do I allow myself within situations, within moments, when I see this kind of tension crawling up on me, how do I drop? How do I bring emptiness and centeredness in the moment? I agree with you that you don't do much with the parties in this half an hour process. But if you are centered, if you are relaxed, it shows. Mm-hmm. It sets a tone that even subconsciously has an effect on others. I started by thanking Alex with how she opened with this very calm and beautiful opening that she had. It makes a difference, right? We learn about body language, about how important with what it is that we bring from our body language. Also the tone, also the pace, highly important. So if we are centered, if we are relaxed, again, not relaxed in the sense of driving people crazy, but relaxed in the sense of centered, it shows, it sets the tone. Thank you.
I actually would like to piggyback on that, because
Please,
I think there are techniques to use when you need to be quick and fast.
True.
One technique I have seen from the U.S. Navy SEALs, because believe it or not, they're into mindfulness themselves.
Yes.
Because they have to be very focused.
Yes.
And centered in the moment in crises.
Yes.
And one very quick thing is box breathing. Look to the left, breathe. Look to the right, breathe. Look up, look down, go. And you can do that in a matter of seconds. And also, I look at, since I play the violin and I want to perform, right? I can't be sitting here breathing, focusing on my breath, when I am trying to figure out where my hands, need to go on the instrument, how I hold the bow and all of that. But it's to have, like you said, a lot of things in a sense pre-positioned so that it becomes automatic in the moment, and to be very in the moment, even though you have to move faster. Okay. And it's just sort of cultivating that tension between, okay, I've got to, keep going. And, a little detachment saying, okay, you're doing this in a more controlled fashion and not just being reactive.
Exactly. So if I start from your second comment, it's about moving from being reactive to what I would call being responsive. And it's a huge difference. Mm-hmm. And being responsive is not being automatic, working from automatic pilot, but rather being more reflective and aware, reflexive in the moment, and then being able to relate, to the situation. Responsibility, the ability to be responsive Okay, we're trying to take responsibility on the situation, being responsive to a situation in the moment, in situ, indeed. And we can do that while playing the violin, while, doing whatever it is that we do, because we adapt and we do things that are right for the situation. We don't bring it from some certain model, from preconceived notions from back home. It doesn't work like that in the kind of world that we live in. We need to be able to adapt to situations every second anew. With regard to the seals and regard to all other kind of techniques, obviously there's so many. In here, I'm focusing on certain issues that come from mindfulness, and even there's so many. I'm working with a framework called Inside Dialogue, which is developed by a very brave Vipassana teacher, brave in the sense that he does interpersonal mindfulness, and I worked with him, and I'm doing that, working with my students on developing the interpersonal mindfulness and allow things to unfold in situ. I cannot go into that obviously now. That's but comes from the tradition of Buddhist philosophy, psychology, and practices.
Yeah. Well, the interesting about the box method of the seals is actually it's based on neuropsychology, where
True.
you're crossing your eyes across
True.
the midline.
True.
And as you're doing that, you recenter.
True.
So,
Neuropsychology is important, but there's so many traditions and so many ways and that are beautiful, and yeah, I hear you. Other questions, thoughts to share, things to contribute.
I think also that it's like if you're under stress, like time stress, maybe instead of going into yourself, you actually go out.
That's a very important point. One thing that individualistic ethos in which we live does harm to our understanding of Buddhist insights, is that we tend to take it in because this is what we used to do. In a way, there is no in and there is no out. And in the very same time, it's about fresh eyes with regard to what's out. Unfortunately, much of the trainings that we have on mindfulness takes things in a way that is not necessarily what the Buddha, I think, had in mind. But again, it's a different conversation. It's about connecting with the in and out in ways that it's somewhat of a different movement. True.
Almost sometimes like a dissolving of barriers.
Exactly.
But in a controlled and healthy way.
Exactly. It's not about developing dependency in an unhealthy way, of course. Please, anyone who's speaking? Others? Was it helpful, our time together?
Yes.
Was it nourishing? Even small bites? Was it interesting?
Mhm.
Thank you, Vikram. Thank you. My practice tonight will be to say, okay, I can suspend the need to know how it was for everyone because there's a lot of silence, although some are wonderful. Okay, very nice. Maybe I won't need to suspend that much. Yeah, there's so much research and readings and teachings. There's so much. Again, it was just a we have a master class, right, Alex? That we offering.
I was gonna say, so anyone who's interested to go more deep into that topic, we're gonna offer a masterclass on it, meaning 8 hours, so 2 half days with Ran on that topic, including that in your mediation practice if you're interested. We're gonna publish those masterclasses on our website soon, but if you're interested, just drop us an email and we will put you on the waiting list already, if that's of interest to you.
And those of you who want even more, come to Israel. Take a year-long graduate degree program. We have students do that. They take a year off. Israel is a place to be, to learn, conflict transformation. Unfortunately, we're a hub where things are happening in Israel and around us. Haifa is a mixed city of Jews and Arabs. So, allow yourself to take time to study and to take, it doesn't have to be in Israel, doesn't have to be with us. Take time, conflict resolution becomes a discipline. Doing a graduate degree is highly recommended, to go beyond, not instead, obviously, the mediation training, but beyond to go to more in-depth studies. I interrupted you, Alex. Can I say something else and then I will let you close? Is that okay?
Yes, sure.
I want to go back and challenge through what we've been saying, the concept of empowerment. And this will be my way to kind of wrap up. Usually we see empowerment as, hey, I feel strong with myself. I feel good with myself. I feel independent. I'm less dependent on you. I have clarity with regard to what I need and what I want. That's how we usually see empowerment. Well, a relational perspective of empowerment, a narrative perspective of empowerment, we don't go to the narrative approach, says that, that we want to enhance participation of disputants by, in a way, destabilizing their sense of fixed, coherent, and consistent self. It's putting things on their head in a way. The more people are allowing themselves to be insecure, to be vulnerable, to bring a place of not knowing, what is called in Buddhism the beginner's mind, is where they connect even more. Again, the Western ethos is almost the opposite. Look at the beautiful and most watched TED Talk ever, The Power of Vulnerability, Brené Brown. Not without a reason, it's the most popular TED Talk ever, helping us to be vulnerable. Look at the wonderful book, The Wisdom of Insecurity, Ellen Watts, one of the first authors who wrote about Buddhism in the Western tradition. It was I think in the 50s of the 20th century, The Wisdom of Insecurity. Why? There's so much wisdom in being insecure. Not insecure in the sense of, oh my God, I'm freaking out, I don't know what's going to happen, and I'm shutting myself and I'm paralyzed. That's not that. It's about saying, hey, I'm here to explore with you. I don't have all the answers. I'm not like kind of closed on myself. I'm not like have it all settled and all arranged in my mind. I'm here to help shake the tree in a way and help us, find new terrains together. This is dialogue. This is about exercising human nature to the fullest. In an individualistic world that we live in, it's somewhat unfortunate that we shy away from that capacity, from these abilities to be with others in such a way. This is where intimacy lies. This is where being with others in our fullest is taking place. This is where meaning, creating meaning, is taking place. This is where we live life at full. Thank you very much, everyone.
Thank you.
Alex.
Thank you so much, Ran. Before you closed, I was actually going to ask if you could share one key experience that really made you think that those practices within mediation processes or dialogue processes are really useful. Because while you were talking, I was thinking about how to implement that in different settings within a mediation. So if you would like to, you could maybe share some of your, or one key experience where you thought, okay, that really changed the atmosphere in the room.
Sometimes when the time is right, inviting people to just pause and ask them, where are you right now? What's going on in you? What's vibrating? And inviting and encouraging the sharing of this vulnerability or insecurity or not knowing, to ask a question, a real question, which is, You know what? I'm not so sure. I came in and I thought that, but I'm confused now. Oh, I love these moments when somebody in mediation is telling me I'm confused now. I say, gosh, it's a breakthrough. It is wonderful. Now he's opening up to the possibilities of allowing new things to grow. You know, the notion of deconstruction. I don't make them feel bad about not knowing. On the contrary, I help people say, you know, I don't know. I'm confused. And when this happens, and we allow people to bring in other ideas and to think about it from a more complex perspective, whatever comes is wonderful. Whatever comes is nourishing. I see it, you know, working with people, with organizations that they have the authority to take decisions. And I tell them, you know, it's not about, even though you have the authority to take decision, will it be nourishing for the situation that you're dealing with a community that you're working with? I'm doing all kinds of environmental projects, you know, conflict, consensus building, environmental issues. Or would it be better if, you know, come back to the community and try to explore with them their needs and what might be helpful and how you can all get together in new ways? So mindfulness is an addition. It's a skill to remind us first and foremost about the possibility and the potential of bringing that insecurity and not knowing into the mix. As a mediator, sometimes I think that the most important skill that I can bring is some sort of a reminder that we as human beings are not always with like firm knowledge and clear understanding of things, and it's just okay, because this is where things really happen. This is where movement takes place. Unfortunately, in times of conflict, people come and I know exactly what I want. I know exactly who I'm dealing with. I know exactly how it should end, and I don't want to be bothered. So I welcome being bothered. Being bothered is where we allow fresh air in, we allow other perspectives in, we allow walking together with new paths that help us take directions that we never thought are possible. Does that make sense? Does that answer a bit?
Absolutely. Thank you so much. And now I am closing. Thank you so much, Ran, for being here today and sharing all of this. Thank you, everyone else, for being here, taking the time, asking great questions.
People have questions. Maybe should I write my email, or do you
Yes,
want to?
actually, that would be good. And this is Ran's email address. Exactly. I'm going to add ours as well. So if you have any follow-up questions or interest in that topic, just get back to us. And I hope everyone has a great day, great evening, great morning, afternoon, wherever you are. Take care and see you soon.